A person wanders from place to place seeking the fulfillment of their prayers, visiting temples, mosques, doctors, and healers, and even resorting to rituals and exorcisms. While the prayer might eventually be answered, one is left remembering the sacrifices that had to be made along the way. They say human desire is vast, deeper than the ocean, and there is nothing a person won't leave behind to satisfy it. Such is the story of Salima, who had married at 21. Even after 5 years, she was still waiting for her first child. While her mother and mother in law worried, Salima harbored a different fear. She was terrified that her husband Mujeeb might marry someone else. This anxiety constantly haunted her. She would discuss it with her mother, who suggested various ways to conceive, but nothing seemed to work. Amidst this fear, Salima ran into her childhood friend Fatima one day. Fatima had long been branded barren by society and her extended family. But when Salima saw Fatima that day, she was transfixed. Fatima was holding a child in her lap. Astonished, Salima asked, "Whose child is this?" "He is mine," Fatima replied. Salima could hardly believe it. But how? Fatima quietly explained that the child was not the result of medical treatment but a blessing received after making a vow at the shrine of Shah Doule. Fatima shared the story of the Shah Doule shrine located in Gujarat, Pakistan, with Salima recounting the peculiar belief people held about it at that time. It was said that if a woman made a vow at Shah Doule's shrine seeking a child, her wish could be granted. However, that vow came at a price. The firstborn child had to be given to Shah Doule, and that child would later be left at the shrine. These children were known as Shah Doule's rats. Salima was terrified when she heard this. On one hand, there was her long held desire of a child, and on the other hand, a vow that required her to hand over her unborn baby to someone else. Salima persuaded Najib, and the two set off for Gujarat. Upon reaching the shrine of Shah Doule, Salima made a vow. However, what she witnessed there completely shook her worldview. Gathered around the shrine were children whom people referred to as Shah Doule's rats. Among them was a young girl appearing to be about 16 or 17 years old. Yet her head was unusually small compared to that of an ordinary person. Her behavior too was unlike that of other child. Her nose was running and she sat on the ground playing in a peculiar manner. At first glance, a faint smile escaped Salima's lips, but the very next moment her expressions changed, for people were staring at the girl, laughing and tossing money at her. Salima began to realize that these children were no longer just children here. They had become a spectacle. In fact, a street performer was holding the girl, using her to stage a monkey-like act. At that moment, a question crossed Salima's mind. What if my child turned out like this? But the vow had already been made. Time passed, and before long, Salima discovered she was pregnant. Finally, after years of waiting, she was to be blessed with a child. Then one day she gave birth to a son, a beautiful baby boy. He had a small black mark on his right cheek. Salima named him Mujeeb. Now Salima faced the very decision she had dreaded most. The vow had been fulfilled, but now it was no longer a matter of some unknown child. Now he was in her lap, her son, her Mujeeb. Salima did not want to let go of him. However, bound by a tradition she believed in and pressured by family members who held the custom in high regard, she was compelled to give up her firstborn to the shrine of Shah Doule. Ultimately, Salima had to part ways with Mujeeb. He was left behind at the shrine. Salima returned home, but she left her child behind. For Mujeeb, the shrine became his entire world. He was so young that he did not even remember his mother's face. Gradually, he fell into the clutches of those who exploited these children for public spectacle and profit. From childhood, his head and face were encased in a rigid metal covering to ensure his features remained in the specific form people expected of Shah Doule's rat. He was not being raised to live a normal human life. Instead, he was trained to dance, perform tricks, and beg before crowds, facing beatings whenever he failed to comply. Mujeeb saw many other children around him in similar states. Some were just like him, abandoned there at a tender age. Every day, 4 or 5 children were left behind, all destined to endure the same fate. Amidst this, Mujeeb witnessed things that would shape his future. Occasionally, well-dressed individuals would arrive and take some of these rats away with them. When the children returned after some time, their clothes were torn, they were bleeding from between their legs, and they were weeping. Clearly, something terrible had been done to them. He would watch those kids and then the next day see another child arriving at the same spot. Gradually, all of this became a part of his daily routine. He didn't even realize that this wasn't a normal childhood. It was simply a world where the plight of children was turned into a spectacle, and others profited from their helplessness. Meanwhile, Salima's condition began to deteriorate. She was frequently haunted by strange dreams. Sometimes she felt a massive rat gnawing at her body. At other times, she would see Mujeeb crawling into a burrow. She would grab his tail to pull him out, only to feel huge rats from within dragging him back in. Occasionally, the girl she had seen once at the shrine would appear before her. Salima would alternate between laughing and suddenly bursting into tears. Time passed, Salima had more children, yet Mujeeb never left her heart. Eventually, a time came when she accepted that Mujeeb was likely dead. Years went by. During this time, Salima had 3 children. Life was slowly returning to normal when one day, while she was busy with household chores, her children came running in. Mummy, mummy, a street performer has arrived outside. We want to watch his show. The children insisted on inviting the performer inside. Salima agreed. Alright, go ahead. Call him in. Watch the show. Shortly after the performer arrived in front of the house with his act, the children sat around him. The performance began and the show featured a monkey as well. It was dancing, leaping about here and there, and the children were teasing it and laughing. When the performance ended, the children came running to Salima. Mummy, give us some money. We have to pay the monkey handler. Salima stepped outside as well. She took out her purse and began to pull out some money. But just then, her gaze fell upon the monkey. The monkey was still right there. The children were teasing it and it was making peculiar movements. For a moment, Salima even felt like laughing, but the very next instant, her eyes fixed on its face and she froze completely. On that face was that same black mark, the very same mark that was on Mujeeb's right cheek. The money seemed to halt in Salima's hand. She looked at the face again and a single voice echoed within her. This is Mujeeb, her son, the very son she had left at the shrine of Shah Doule years ago. But the very next moment, Salima's mind was flooded with another question. How did Mujeeb end up like this? When he was born, he wasn't like this at all. He was a beautiful child. His head wasn't like that either, nor was his face. So what had happened to him? Tears began to stream from Salima's eyes. She just kept looking at him. And then the boy came towards her. She looked at Salima and extended his hand and said, 1 rupee. Hearing just those words, Salima gathered him into her arms. She wept, she held him close. She kept gazing at his face as if the child she had lost years ago had returned to her lap. Salima gave him 100 rupees. Then turning to the showman, she said, give him to me. Take this 100 rupees. But the showman refused. To him, Mujeeb wasn't just a child. He was his livelihood. He said he couldn't part with his source of income for a mere 100 rupees. Salima didn't give up. She offered 500 rupees. Finally, a deal was struck to keep Mujeeb for 500 rupees. Now Salima had her son back. Salima thought she would call the rest of the family and tell them, look, my Mujeeb has come back. She went inside the house and a short while later, when she returned to the veranda, Mujeeb was not there. Salima's breath hitched. She looked around. Mujeeb was nowhere to be found. He had run away. Salima realized he had gone back to that very Madari. She immediately went after him, but when she tried to take Mujeeb back, Mujeeb started screaming. He began to cry and hid behind the Madari. His world was now the place where he had lived for years. The Madari and the spectacle. This was a story of a superstition that drove a mother to sell her firstborn child. This is the story of Saadat Hasan, Manto's famous short story, Shah Doule ka Chuha. But here Manto's story leaves behind a profound question about the women in the city of Gujarat who, having prayed for offspring at the shrine of Shah Doule, would leave their firstborn child there. Just how much superstition, desperation and backward thinking must have existed for parents to abandon their 1 or 2-year-old child there with their own hands. That child was theirs. He had been raised in their arms. His meals, his sleep and his very need had been witnessed by them. Yet in the name of a vow, he was abandoned. And the most disturbing part was that instead of viewing this decision as wrong, many considered it as sacred and necessary. The rats of Shah Doule were in reality human beings. To any real human being, put yourself in their shoes, imagine your own child in that place and ask yourself, could you ever live such a wretched life? That's it for today. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, do like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe our channel. We'll see you in the next story.